The slap came out of nowhere. Sharp, loud, humiliating. Right there, in the middle of the luxury mall's marble lobby, the sound echoed off the walls and stopped everything. Shoppers froze mid-step. Phones slipped from hands. The espresso machine at the cafe behind the glass counter let out a soft hiss, but no one heard it. Because every eye was now locked on the woman who had just been hit. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She stood still, a small woman in a faded hoodie, sun-beaten jeans, and worn sneakers. Her face turned slightly to the side from the force, but her eyes didn't blink. They burned with something quiet, something that didn't belong to the kind of person they thought she was. The security guard who hit her. A tall, bulky man with a tight haircut and mirrored sunglasses, even though they were indoors. His voice was still booming. "Get out of here. This isn't a shelter. You think you can walk in here looking like that and nobody's gonna say anything?" The woman remained still. A few shoppers reached for their phones. A couple began recording. One teenage girl whispered, "Is she okay?" Another voice replied coldly, "She shouldn't be here in the first place." But she didn't move. Instead, she slowly lifted her chin, and for the first time she spoke. "I didn't come here to beg," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the silence like a blade. "I came to see how people would treat me if they thought I was no one." The security guard scoffed. "Yeah, well, mission accomplished. Now leave before I call backup." His voice was laced with disgust, like she was trash he was forced to deal with. He reached for his walkie-talkie. People started moving again, not to help, but to get a better angle for their TikToks. After all, a public humiliation was good content. The woman ignored them all. Her eyes scanned the atrium. She saw the giant glass chandelier, the luxury brands on either side, the concierge desk, and the new now under renovation signs lining the north wing. She stared at those signs just a little longer. "You're going to regret this," she whispered. The guard laughed. "You threatening me now, lady?" She said nothing. Instead, she reached into the pocket of her hoodie and pulled out an old scratched phone. Her fingers tapped fast. A soft vibration buzzed in her hand. Then she put the phone back in her pocket. Behind her, the automatic doors slid open with a quiet whoosh. No one noticed yet. But a woman in a suit was walking in quickly, followed by 3 men in dark clothes. They weren't shopping. They weren't there to browse. Back in the center of the atrium, the woman looked straight at the guard again. "I told you. You're making a mistake. You're the mistake," he barked, and pointed toward the exit. "Now walk out before I drag you out." The moment hovered like a storm cloud about to break. Every camera phone was up now. Everyone expected her to run, to cry, to crumble. But she did none of that. She simply stood there quietly, eyes unwavering. If this has you on edge already, if you believe no one should be treated this way based on how they look, take 2 seconds to hit like and comment the number 9. The story is about to explode, because in less than 5 minutes that same security guard will be begging not to lose his job. And the woman everyone mocked, she's the new owner of this entire mall, and she just hit record. The woman didn't flinch. Not when he yelled. Not when the crowd laughed. Not even when he took a step closer, puffing up his chest like a man used to getting his way. But others were starting to notice something was off. A young employee standing behind the customer service desk froze mid-swipe on her iPad. Her name tag read Lisa. She had been watching the entire scene unfold. At first she assumed the woman was just another vagrant, like the ones they were trained to quietly move along. But now, there was something in the woman's calm. A weight to it. A steadiness that didn't fit the narrative. Lisa's eyes darted toward the phone still in the woman's pocket. The way she'd typed, it was too precise. Not like someone panicking. More like someone triggering something. She leaned forward slightly, curiosity slowly replacing judgment. Meanwhile, the security guard turned to the growing crowd and raised his voice. "Folks, everything's under control. Please continue shopping." But nobody moved. because behind him, 3 men in charcoal suits had just entered the lobby, scanning the scene with quiet intensity. Their steps were fast, deliberate, and silent. Behind them walked a woman in a slate gray pantsuit with a leather folder pressed to her chest. She looked like someone from corporate, only higher. The guard finally noticed them. He straightened up, his voice still loud but now with a hint of formality. "Can I help you?" The woman in the pantsuit didn't answer. She walked directly past him and stopped in front of the woman he had just tried to remove. "Ma'am," she said softly, "everything is ready." Gasps rippled through the lobby. "Ma'am," the security guard blinked. He glanced between them, waiting for the punchline. It didn't come. "What do you mean, ma'am?" The woman, still in the hoodie, finally smiled. It was small, cold, and it hit like a slow earthquake. "I told you I wasn't here to beg. I'm here to assess. And now I've seen enough." The guard scoffed again, but his voice cracked this time. "Assess what? You're not with..." "Wait. Who are you?" She didn't answer. The woman in the pantsuit stepped in instead. "Allow me to introduce Miss Lynn Tran. As of this morning, she is the sole majority stakeholder and acting chair of the board that owns this shopping center and 22 others just like it." Silence, then whispers, then chaos. "No way," someone muttered. "That can't be true. Wait, is this for real?" Lisa covered her mouth with her hand. The name Lynn Tran had been all over the financial news lately. Something about a tech mogul moving into real estate. Everyone said she was low profile, never showed her face, worked in silence, built an empire. And now she was standing here, still dripping with the water spilled from the guard's coffee tray earlier. Still wearing the hoodie he said didn't belong. Still calm. The guard's face had gone pale. "There must be some mistake," he stammered. "She didn't show ID. She was trespassing. I didn't know." "That's the point," Miss Tran said quietly. "You didn't know, and you didn't care to find out." He looked at her, panic rising in his chest. "Look, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to slap me," she interrupted. "To humiliate me in front of dozens of witnesses. To shove someone out the door without asking a single question." He tried to speak but nothing came out. Behind him, the crowd had gone dead silent. Lisa stepped forward, her voice small. "Ma'am, I don't know if this helps, but I saw what happened. You didn't do anything wrong." Miss Tran looked at her for the first time. Their eyes met. She gave Lisa a small nod, a thank you. Then she turned back to the crowd. "I didn't come here to fire anyone, but I did come here with questions, and now I have answers." She pulled her phone from her pocket again. "Because I had a feeling something like this would happen. So I came in the one way you'd never expect, dressed like someone you'd ignore." Her thumb tapped the screen. In an instant, security footage lit up on the large display behind the lobby desk. It showed the entire scene, from the moment she walked in, to the slap, to the crowd's reaction. No edits, no commentary, just truth, unfiltered, undeniable. If you're still watching and you're just as stunned as they are right now, comment the number 9. Because things are about to get even worse for the ones who thought they were untouchable. And this is just the beginning. For a few long seconds, no one in the lobby moved. The footage played on the massive wall display behind the concierge desk, silent, in crisp high definition. The slap, the ridicule, the smirks. The phones raised, not to help, but to film. It was all there, looping on a quiet reel of shame. Lynn didn't look away, neither did the guard. But now, his arms were no longer crossed, they were trembling at his sides. Lisa took a slow step back behind the desk. Her heart was racing. She had just spoken up for a billionaire on camera in front of dozens of people. Her voice still trembled from it. But more than fear, something else stirred inside her. Guilt. Because just 30 minutes ago, she had whispered to a coworker, "Should we call security?" when Lynn first walked in. And now she was watching herself in the background of that very security footage. Lynn's voice broke the silence. "This isn't just about me," she said. "It's about what kind of culture you've created here, what kind of people you empower, and how easy it is to mistake cruelty for control." The mall's general manager, who had just arrived after getting urgent texts, pushed through the crowd. A man in his 50s with slicked back hair and a designer belt. He had a forced smile already loaded before he even saw her. "Miss Tran, I'm terribly sorry for all of this. Please, let's discuss this privately in my office." "No," she replied calmly. "This stays right here." His smile faltered. "There's no need for a scene. We can resolve this with discretion." She turned to him, eyes sharp. "That's the problem. Discretion is what allows this to happen again and again. Silence is what keeps people like him in power." Her words struck like lightning. Several shoppers murmured in agreement. Phones were still recording. One TikTok live had already passed 12,000 viewers. Across the lobby, the guard, still pale, finally spoke. "You don't understand. I was just doing my job." Lynn stepped toward him. "No. Your job is to protect this place, but instead you judged, you humiliated, and you put your hands on someone because of how they looked. That's not protection. That's prejudice with a uniform." He looked away. Sweat collected at his temples. Lynn's phone buzzed softly in her hand. She glanced at the screen. The legal team had finished filing the internal misconduct report. HR was reviewing the footage. A press statement had already been drafted. Her team had moved fast, just like always. She looked up and scanned the crowd again. "I didn't come here to make anyone afraid. I came here to see the truth, and I did." Then her voice dropped lower, more personal. "Because you see, when I was 15, I was the girl who got kicked out of stores for looking poor. I was the one mocked for not having the right shoes, or the right haircut, or the right phone." She turned slowly to the wall display, now frozen on the frame where the slap landed. Her voice trembled, not with weakness, but with memory. "And for years I thought I just needed to get stronger, tougher, richer. But now I realize, what we really need is accountability." The crowd had shifted. This wasn't just a viral moment anymore. This was something deeper, something exposing. Lisa watched, frozen. Then in a burst of instinct, she ducked down and opened the secure terminal behind the desk. She pulled up the internal mall email thread. Her eyes widened. There had been dozens of complaints about the same security guard. Reports of intimidation, verbal abuse, even racism. All handled internally, all brushed under the rug. Her hand hovered over the mouse, then clicked forward, and sent them, all of them, to Lynn. The moment the files hit Lynn's inbox, her phone buzzed again. She looked at the screen, her jaw tightening. "Of course," she said quietly. She raised her voice. "To the general manager, and the owners of these stores, just know this. I didn't only buy the mall, I bought the management rights. I have the authority to reassign leadership, revoke leases, and restructure teams." The manager stiffened. "Wait, let's not do anything drastic." "It's not drastic," she said calmly. "It's overdue." And the security guard. His knees bent slightly. He looked like he was trying not to faint. Because what Lynn said next wasn't just for him, it was for everyone watching. Everyone who had ever been dismissed, ignored, or disrespected. If you judge people by their clothes, be ready to be judged by your actions. The crowd erupted in quiet nods and whispers. Some began to applaud softly. Lisa wiped a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. And if you think that's powerful, what Lynn's about to do next will leave the entire mall speechless. The mall had never been this quiet, not even on Christmas Eve. Not during a power outage. Not when a fire alarm accidentally went off last summer. This was different. This was silence born out of tension. Lynn stood at the center of it, grounded, calm, and absolutely untouchable. Across from her, the general manager kept glancing toward the escalators, like he was hoping to vanish. The security guard had stepped back, pressing against the wall like it might open and swallow him whole. And then Lynn raised her hand. Only slightly, but it was enough. From the glass doors at the entrance, 2 more people entered. A woman in black slacks and a navy blouse, and a man in a gray jacket. They walked with purpose, carrying leather folders. One had a tablet in hand, already loading a dashboard. Their name badges read Corporate Audit Team. The crowd parted instinctively as they moved through. Lisa stared, breath caught in her throat. "We're ready," one of them said to Lind. "Do you want to begin the interviews now?" Lind shook her head gently. "Not yet." She turned toward the security guard. Her voice didn't rise, she didn't yell. But somehow, her words felt louder than anything else that day. "I'm not here to ruin lives, but I am here to reveal them, and what I reveal next is not just about one slap, it's about a pattern. A system, and everyone who allowed it to continue." She looked at the manager, then at the guard, then back at the crowd. "Some of you stood and filmed, others whispered, some laughed, some did nothing, but only one person, one had the courage to speak up. And that was her." She pointed gently to Lisa. Lisa froze. Eyes turned to her, color flushed to her cheeks. She could barely breathe as Lynch walked toward her. "What's your name?" "Lisa, Mom. You saw what happened, and you chose truth over comfort." Lisa swallowed hard. "I didn't know who you were, I just knew what they did wasn't right." Lynch nodded, her eyes softening. "That's all I needed." Then she turned to her audit team. "Please flag Lisa's name. Schedule a meeting for Monday. I want to offer her a role on my personal staff." Gasps burst from the crowd. Lisa's eyes widened, her hand flew to her mouth. A wave of disbelief crashed through her. The manager stepped forward, desperation creeping in. "Miss Tran, with all due respect, Lisa's only been here a few months. She doesn't have the experience." "That's enough," Lynch said, cutting him off sharply for the first time. "Because experience doesn't matter if you've trained your team to be silent in the face of abuse. I'd rather hire someone with a conscience than a resume." Her words were like a hammer, direct, merciless. The manager stepped back, stunned into silence, and then Lynch's voice softened again. "There's something else I need to show you all." She tapped her phone. On the display behind her, a new video began to play. Security footage, time-stamped 3 weeks ago, the same guard, shoving a teenager outside by the backpack. No reason, just the same smug power trip, the same unchecked ego. Then another clip, an older man being mocked behind his back. A mother with 2 children being told to shop somewhere else, one after another. A highlight reel of quiet cruelty. All of it caught, all of it real. The mood shifted. This wasn't about Lynch anymore. This was about something much bigger. Lynn looked out at them all. "I dressed down today for a reason. I needed to know who would treat me differently. I needed to see who would stand up, not for a billionaire, but for a stranger who looked like she didn't belong." She paused, then looked back at the guard. "You failed that test, and now you have to face the consequences." His lips parted to speak, but no sound came out. Suddenly, the PA system beeped. A voice came over the speakers. "Attention all mall personnel. Effective immediately. The security team is to report to conference room B for reassignment review. All active duties are suspended, pending investigation." The guard blinked, confused. "What is this?" Lynn turned to him one last time. "This is what accountability feels like, and if you've ever wondered whether the system really changes, stay with me, because what's coming next is the moment that will shake the entire foundation they thought was unbreakable." Lisa stood frozen behind the desk. Her hands trembled, her pulse raced. Just a few hours ago, she was a nobody, an hourly worker with no power, no voice, no name anyone remembered. And now her name had been spoken in front of everyone. Praised, promised a role she never imagined. But instead of pride, she felt a strange knot in her chest, because she knew the truth. She hadn't spoken up right away. She'd stood and watched, just like everyone else. Only when it became safe to speak did she do it. The applause in the lobby had quieted now. The crowd still lingered, phones still out, but the energy had shifted again. Security was gone. The general manager had vanished somewhere down a service hallway. And Lynn was standing quietly near one of the large glass windows, staring out at the parking lot. She looked calm, controlled. but not okay. Lisa stepped out from behind the desk and slowly approached her. Miss Tran. Lynn turned her head slightly, her voice soft. You don't have to call me that. Lisa hesitated. I need to say something. Lynn looked at her fully now, curiosity in her eyes. Lisa's voice cracked. Back when you were being yelled at, I didn't say anything. I wanted to, but I was scared. I didn't want to lose my job. I didn't want to become a target too. I just stood there. She looked down, ashamed. You gave me credit for being brave, but I wasn't. Not really. There was a pause. Then Lynn spoke. Let me ask you something. Did you feel what happened was wrong? Yes. And did it stay with you, even when everyone else moved on? Yes. Then that's more than most. She stepped closer. You may not have acted first, but you acted. When it mattered. When it counted. That's what courage looks like sometimes. It's not always loud. It's not always instant. But it shows up. Lisa's eyes welled. But I feel like I don't deserve what you offered. Lynn gave her a long, steady look. Do you think he deserved the authority he abused? Lisa shook her head slowly. Exactly. She sighed, her voice lower. Look, I didn't come here to find perfect people. I came here to find honest ones. Because honest people can grow. Arrogant ones just hide behind their power. She turned to the window again, her reflection staring back. For a long time, I thought revenge would make the pain go away. That if I just got rich enough, powerful enough, I could walk into any room and never be humiliated again. And today I realized something worse. Lisa blinked. Worse? Lynn nodded. Even with all this ownership, control, lawyers on speed dial, it still hurt. When he slapped me, I wasn't a billionaire. I was that 15-year-old girl again, small, invisible, not enough. Her voice grew quiet, and the worst part is, part of me wanted to destroy him, not for justice, but just to feel bigger than him. Lisa stayed silent. Lynn turned, finally meeting her gaze. I don't know what I'm going to do next, not just with this mole, with myself. And just like that, the woman who had seemed so invincible, wasn't. Not entirely. Lisa wiped her eyes. There was a long silence between them. Then Lisa whispered, maybe the strongest thing you did today wasn't firing him. It was not becoming like him. Lynn's eyes filled, but she said nothing. In the background, the massive display screen switched to a soft black screen, with only one message in white text. Dignity is not earned through appearance, it's revealed through choice. The crowd had mostly gone now. The ones still recording put their phones down. The moment had shifted again. No longer a scandal, no longer a spectacle, something more human now, raw, quiet. And just when it seemed like the story was about to end, the escalator beeped. Two uniformed officers stepped off, followed by a man in a dark suit, an internal affairs liaison. They approached Lynn. Miss Tran, the witness statements and footage are ready. Shall we proceed? She nodded once, slow. Yes. Let's begin. Because while forgiveness is personal, consequences are public. And some reckonings have to happen where the world can see them. And what comes next, no one in this building is ready for. The lobby light seemed brighter now. Maybe it was just the stillness. Maybe it was the way everyone's attention had narrowed. Not on the stores, not on the sales, but on the center of the room where justice was finally breathing. Lynn stepped forward, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. On either side of her, the officers and the internal affairs liaison flanked her with quiet respect. Behind them, Lisa followed, holding a folder filled with witness statements and incident reports, evidence pulled from years of silence. The security guard was still standing near the wall. His face was pale, his lips dry, his knees slightly bent. He looked less like a man now, and more like a child caught in the middle of a lie. Miss Tran, the lead officer said respectfully, would you like to speak before we proceed? Lynn nodded. She turned slowly, facing the lobby one last time. A few curious onlookers had remained. Some staff, some customers, and of course some phones still pointed in her direction. But she wasn't speaking to the camera anymore. She was speaking to every person who had ever been shoved, ignored, or silenced. To every girl who walked into a luxury store and was followed. To every man spoken over because of how he dressed. To every worker told to stay quiet if you want to keep your job. Lynn's voice was calm, not cold, not angry, just steady. I never wanted to humiliate anyone, but I learned a long time ago that silence protects no one. And appearances, well, they protect nothing at all. She turned toward the guard. You didn't just hurt me today, you hurt this company. You hurt its integrity. And worst of all, you made dozens of people feel like treating others with cruelty was somehow acceptable. He tried to speak. I didn't mean for. She held up a hand. Stop. Her tone wasn't sharp. It wasn't loud, but it landed like a gavel in the room. You meant it in every gesture, in every word, in the way you looked at me like I didn't belong. And the worst part, you were proud of it. He looked down, shame spreading across his face like a slow storm. An officer stepped forward. We've reviewed the evidence. The footage is clear. The assault was physical, deliberate, and unprovoked. You are hereby under investigation for misconduct and battery. Please turn around and place your hands behind your back. The sound of handcuffs was soft, barely audible, but it rang louder than any scream. Gasps echoed again from a few nearby shoppers. The man who once barked orders was now being led away, silently, in front of the very people he used to intimidate. Lynn didn't flinch. She turned to the mall manager, who had quietly reappeared, standing stiffly near the edge of the crowd, hoping to remain unnoticed. She didn't let him. You allowed this to happen. Repeatedly, you buried reports. You ignored complaints. And you only appeared today when you thought it would damage your career. He opened his mouth, but she cut him off again. You're no longer employed here. Effective immediately. And don't worry, I'll make sure your next employer sees the full HR file. He froze. That's slander, he hissed. No, she replied calmly. That's transparency. Lisa stepped forward and handed Lynn the final folder. Lynn flipped through it quickly, scanning signatures, timestamps, and statements. Then, without ceremony, she passed it to the audit team. Make it public, she said. The lead auditor nodded and walked off. Lisa glanced around and whispered, "They're uploading it to the official company press site." Yes, and sending it to every store manager in this mall. They deserve to know what was allowed to fester under their noses. Lynn took a breath. For the first time, her shoulders dropped just slightly. And then, something unexpected happened. One of the older custodians, quiet, invisible all day, stepped forward. He looked to be in his 70s. His uniform faded, hands worn from work. He took off his cap. "Miss Tran," he said softly. "I've worked here for 23 years. I've seen people come and go, seen people like him come in, act like kings. But what you did today," he paused, eyes misting, "it gave us hope again. Thank you." Lynn blinked. Her voice caught for just a second. "Thank you, sir." Then she turned toward the escalator, where the guard had just been taken. Let today be the last day someone gets away with cruelty behind a badge, or a title, or a suit. She looked back at the crowd. Dignity is not about money. It's about how we treat people when we think no one's watching, and that includes ourselves. She turned, walking slowly back across the lobby, as murmurs of agreement filled the air. Not applause, not cheers, something deeper, respect. And if you're still watching this right now, and if you believe what Lynn did today matters, share this story, tell your own. Because what just happened here, it's not just a story, it's a signal. And we're not done yet. The sun outside was starting to dip, casting long shadows across the marble floors of the mall. The crowd had thinned. The cameras were off, but the moment was still alive in the air. Lynn stood in the heart of the lobby, now surrounded by calm, no shouting, no chaos. Only the echo of what had just happened, something that would ripple far beyond the walls of this building. A young woman approached slowly from one of the stores. She looked nervous, carrying a shopping bag and clutching her phone. "Are you the woman from the video?" she asked. Lynn smiled gently. Depends which one. The girl smiled back, shy but sincere. You didn't raise your voice, you didn't scream, you just stood your ground. That was stronger than anything I've ever seen. Lynn paused, her voice low. Sometimes silence is louder than rage. The girl nodded and whispered, "Thank you. You didn't just stand up for yourself. You stood up for all of us who've been treated like we're nothing." As she walked away, Lynn turned toward the massive glass entrance. Her driver was waiting outside, standing next to a sleek black SUV. Her assistant opened the door for her, but Lynn paused at the edge of the lobby and looked back. The space was different now, not physically. Emotionally, it had been reclaimed. Lisa stepped forward, holding a coffee in each hand. "It's decaf, just how you asked," she said with a little laugh. "I figured you'd earned it." Lynn took the cup, her eyes soft. "You stayed until the end." Lisa shrugged. "It's the least I could do. I watched something happen today that most people will never forget. I didn't want to walk away from it." "You didn't," Lynn said. "And that's why I want you on my team. Not just for today, for the long haul." Lisa's breath caught. "Are you serious?" Lynn nodded. "I don't want perfect people. I want people who remember what it feels like to be underestimated and never forget it." Lisa's eyes shimmered with a quiet pride. As Lynn turned to finally leave, the soft chime of a phone alert broke the air, then another, and another. News outlets, social feeds, press statements, all reporting the same headline. Mall CEO goes undercover, fires security guard who assaulted her. Entire incident caught on tape. Within minutes, the video had been reposted across platforms. Comment sections exploded. Debates ignited. Support flooded in. But Lynn didn't need to read them, because the victory wasn't just in going viral, it was in the shift. The reset. The reminder that respect is not something earned through clothes or titles or net worth, but through humanity. As she stepped into the car, her assistant leaned in. "Your next meeting is in 20 minutes. Do you want to prep?" Lynn stared out the window, watching the mall disappear behind her. "No, let's drive slow." The assistant paused, thinking about what happened. Lynn nodded, voice soft. "I'm thinking about every person who gets ignored. Every worker who's afraid to speak up. Every moment that someone thinks power gives them permission to forget compassion." She turned, meeting her assistant's eyes. "We don't just fix policies, we fix people." The car pulled away, tires silent against the pavement, and in the silence, a quiet sense of justice followed, not just punishment. Change. A few days later, in a recorded message to her company's staff, Lynn looked directly into the camera and said, "Luxury is not what you wear. It's how you make others feel. Respect is not a privilege, it's a standard, and from now on it's non-negotiable." If you've ever been judged for how you looked, where you came from, or what people assumed about you, drop your story in the comments. Someone needs to hear it, and if you believe dignity should never come with conditions, share this, because today, one voice changed everything. And tomorrow, it could be yours.